In case any of you have forgotten, I'm Paul Flannery. You'll have your fill of me by the time lunch rolls around this morning. And in the interests of keeping up with the theme, we're being flexible this morning. I have the pleasure of introducing to you a cabinet member in the state of Florida, Secretary of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Melanie Griffin is here with us. And Melanie has brought with her Siobhan Christian.
Yes.
And Siobhan, your title with the department is Director of the Yacht and Shipbrokers Division?
Of
the whole dang thing.
Of the whole thing.
The whole shooting match.
She's
okay.
a woman.
She does it all. So the reason that I wanted to bring DBPR to the event is because DBPR obviously is the group that oversees everything that happens under Chapter 326 of the Yacht and Shipbrokers Act. There's been change, as there always is at the state level, especially in cabinet positions. They tend to, each governor brings his own cabinet members, and then sometimes for one reason or another, a cabinet member moves off. I believe your predecessor moved over to do the Gaming Commission, correct?
Yes.
And before her, we had COVID take a secretary off of the radar for us. Fortunately, we didn't lose Halsey, but Halsey chose to step down from his role for health issues. And the reason that I wanted to bring Melanie and Siobhan with us today is so that they could give us a little peek behind the curtain as to what goes on at DBPR, what DBPR's function is, how they do the things that we need them to do for us under Yacht and Shipbrokers, and where do we fall in the grand scheme of things. There have been some challenges that Melanie has had the dubious honor of being faced with in her assuming the role, and a lot of really great solutions are in place. So I'm going to start by asking you, Melanie, to give us a little oversight as to what all does DBPR have to look after.
Sure. So as you all may or may not know, we license currently just shy of about 2 million licensees and span about 30 industries of business and in several subsectors. This is not a perfect science nor 100% accurate, but the best, easiest Reader's Digest way to put it is we don't license doctors and lawyers. We touch almost every other business in the state of Florida. Again, not a perfect science, but the most succinct way to put it for the purposes of this panel. And so with that, when I arrived to the department on January 1st, we, of course, have been faced with the labor shortage that has also faced the private sector. What's interesting is that anybody who's looked at current research has showed the private sector is rebounding much better than the public sector. So if I understand correctly, I think the private sector, although starting to still feel the labor shortages, and I respect that, but the number of jobs that have been recovered of people going back is about twice that is the number of people who are going back to public sector jobs. And so certainly we've been challenged with looking at how can we keep up with the public marketplace and make the state jobs just as competitive. But with that,
we've got 22 million jobs back. Sleepy Joe fixed everything, didn't he?
We had a very vibrant political conversation last night at dinner. Hopefully you enjoyed that there. I'm going to keep my comments PC this morning. But point being is when I arrived at, did you like that pivot? When I arrived at the department on January 1st, we had a backlog of about 22,000 applications, and we also had a call wait time of just shy of about an hour. And I am not telling you that to brag on it. It definitely was alarming in terms of getting that information. It was day 2 when that hit me, and I thought, oh gosh, what have I gotten myself into? But the good news is we have a really solutions-oriented team who is dedicated to working on those issues. And so within short order, during our fourth quarter, for us, our fiscal year ends June 30th, we were able to use any of our additional available budget to put towards OPS employees. And so we literally had people working around the clock. We have employees who are staying until 10 p.m. at night during the week, as well as working on the weekends to get that application number down. And so we now are much closer to being, we were always in range, but we are butting up on that 30-day deadline that we have under several of our statutes. And so we We don't like to keep licensees waiting that long, and particularly those of you who have worked with the department for several years, you're oftentimes used to us processing things in, say, 0 to 5 days. And so a lot of times our long-term licensees think something is wrong when you haven't heard from us in that usual period, which increases the call volume, which adds to the process. So that is not a way of asking you not to call us. That is not what we want. It's just more of a way of telling you where we're at. And so with that, what we've done, a couple of things, in addition to having people work not only during the fourth quarter, we've continued that OPS, overtime employment at night and on the weekends to keep up with our call volume and our intake volume. But we also then had a career fair on July 27th. We had almost 500 people come for about 200 vacancies. And so we have been able to fill several of the vacancies that we were experiencing, particularly in our application processing unit as well as in our call center. And so those people need to go through a training. As you can imagine, having an entry-level employee get up to speed on 30 industries is not always a short process. We have a 2 to 6 week training program just to get them into our initial phase of that. So it's not going to be tomorrow, but what I can tell you is in the short term, we do have a plan, not only for having those vacancies filled, but getting people up to speed. We also were appropriated over $4 million from the legislature in this past session that ended in March to revitalize our call center as well as our website to make it a more modern customer experience where the licensee is able to see their information in real time, as well as contact our call center, if not quicker, to certainly experience a first come, first served basis where you will get into the queue, you can hang up, go about your day, we will call you back as soon as an agent is ready to speak with you, and then should you need to talk to additional agents, your transcript will follow you so that you don't have to repeat, hopefully, your story over and over if there is some more difficult or complex issue that needs to be addressed by the department. So I'll take a breath there and let you prompt your next question.
And much to Secretary Griffin's credit, in the midst of all of this, you know, we've had our legislative efforts in place, and they affect directly Chapter 326, speaking strictly to the DBPR. And Secretary Griffin took the time to come to our office in Fort Lauderdale and meet with me and learn a little bit about what our issues are. And what was really refreshing to me was that we really saw eye to eye very quickly and recognized that there are ways that we can help each other. There are things that we can do to suggest up to the department how things can work more smoothly, and there are agency bills as well as there are other bills that we may put forward so that we can work in partnership with government as opposed to being subject to it or trying to avoid it or whatever it is that you do when you deal with government. We want to work together in the solution. And one of the ways that we're working together is with Siobhan. So Siobhan, as director of the department, what responsibilities do you and your team have?
So we regulate a number of program areas or industries. We regulate condominiums, timeshares, mobile homes, cooperatives, and then of course yacht and ship salespersons and brokers.
Not necessarily in that order.
Not necessarily in that. That's our title.
But she would have started with yacht and ship brokers, given the importance.
Right. So we have various roles in regulating those industries. Primarily the associations associated with those industries. And then for you all, it's kind of our only professional licensing program area. And so as it relates to your industry, we process the licenses for your area, and then we also handle the compliance. So if there are any complaints, we have an investigator and then a yacht and ship licensing processor assigned to the yacht and ship program area. But I've spoken with Paul. We luckily, so I got a really great email today that thankfully, credit to Secretary Griffin, we have all of our job fair candidates starting next Friday. It will make our Tallahassee office fully staffed. So thank you so much, because it was really great news.
It was team effort. It took the whole team. It was not me, but that's amazing.
Yeah, we're really excited about that because we haven't been fully staffed since pre-COVID. And so we're very excited about that. But one of those candidates, we're really looking forward to kind of training her on yacht and ship. We really think that there's probably a little bit of a missing piece since, I'm sure many of you know, since Miss Gwen's retirement. And so we really want to try to fill that hole. So we anticipate that you will see some changes in that program area as a result of kind of being more fully staffed, having people that we hope Shalisa, Jamad will train with regard to subject matter expertise. But the capacity is there for those individuals.
So many of you have dealt with Chalisa Kirkland over the years, Lisa Kirkland, and she is now in a supervisor's capacity. She was an investigator, right?
Yes, so she was an investigator in Yacht and Ship. She was then promoted to the supervisor of the Yacht and Ship program area, and then a financial supervisor. Now she is deputy bureau chief. So when you met Jen Solar, who's the bureau chief of compliance overall, which Yacht and Ship is under her deputy bureau chief, she's kind of Jen's right-hand person, but she is still over Yacht and Ship because she's Jamal's supervisor. Lisa is.
Right, and Jamal
McQueen.
Yes. He is pretty much our direct go-to at this moment.
At this moment.
And then we have someone training up.
Right.
And many of you may remember Jen, because Jen used to come to the boat shows with Vicki Bedford. Vicki Bedford was at the department for many, many years.
Yes.
She was a great friend of the industry. She was very present at the boat shows. She would come to our events and talk, and she was really our connection. And when Vicki left, we really haven't had that deep and strong a connection with the DBPR and the ability to work together that we now have. And something else I just want to mention to you guys is that, obviously we have two very, very bright career professionals here on the stage with us, but both of these ladies are trained lawyers. Prior to your secretary's role, you were working with a firm in Tampa. Mm-hmm. And what area of law were you practicing?
I practiced commercial litigation and employment law my career, so worked with businesses and certainly am familiar with that area of the law.
She puts them up and dukes them out.
Yeah.
Okay. And what area of law did you practice?
So I've always worked for the state. When I graduated FSU Law, I became employed as a criminal prosecutor in the Second Judicial Circuit, and then I left the state attorney's office and moved on to DBPR. And I've been in various divisions since then. I still explained to him, like during our meeting last week, I was like, I've been in ABT and PMW. He's like, Siobhan, with all the acronyms, like, you have to explain to me what those are. So I was like, okay. I take for granted that people kind of. But yeah, so I've been in worked in various industries within the department before coming to condos, timeshares, mobile homes, yacht and ships, not necessarily in that order. But yes.
You're catching on quick. I like it. Is there anything else that either of you would care to share with the audience about what you do, what's going on, what's changing, what's moving around? I know there's some things about the website that have recently been changed you may want to share with the audience.
Yes. So we are currently, there's a couple kind of moving pieces, one of which is also, as a candidate in the job fair, we're going to have a new knowledge champion, which I'm so excited about because he, I just think, kind of has a presence of mind and, very kind of innovative. And to the extent that, he can be, we're really looking forward to, that perspective. But also, we've made some changes already to the website, one of which is allowing for an online complaint process. So I think customarily you all are used to there being a yacht and ship complaint form on our website, but now we have for all of our program areas, an online complaint form link. And there is a designated, so on the division's homepage, you'll find that there are 6 kind of blue squares or tiles. One of those blue tiles is dedicated to yacht and ship. It says yacht and ship license. If you click on that, it has a couple of collapsible, areas, one of which says, to file a complaint, and you can file a complaint online there. It can be submitted there. It comes right to us. So there's no need for paper filing or submission of complaints any longer.
So one of the most recent issues that we've been dealing with, or one of the things that occurs to us as a community more frequently than anything else, has been exacerbated because of the staffing challenges that y'all have faced, and I know we have fixes in place, but renewals is really the big thing that this community is dealing with at the moment, either renewals or transfers. Someone who chooses to leave their company and assume the mantle of employing broker, or change companies, or renew their license. Where do we go for that? Because it always happens that we've got like 30 seconds to get this done, or I'm going to be outside of the law, right? I got a deal going. I'm not working there anymore. I'm working over here. I don't want to break the law. I don't want to be, I don't want to be at odds with what I'm supposed to be doing. Where do we go at this moment to get the help that we need to get things done? Because we never wait till the last minute. It's always outside forces that cause us to be in a rush to get things done.
Yeah, well, we understand that things happen. So I would say like the list of names that I gave you, and I kind of put them in the order of what we believe to be like our subject matter experts.
Okay.
So Lisa is first,
right?
Because I do think that Jamad, even though he's a supervisor over the area, still has some things to learn. She was in that area the longest.
She's very
so
familiar
she really,
with our group and how we roll.
Exactly. And so I included her phone number, her email address. So I would say calling her directly so as to circumvent CCC until they're kind of fully trained. I mean, the secretary says they're going to be very soon, but just so that, to potentially circumvent any, chances that you may have to have a long wait time. You can just get right to her if there are any questions about, renewing right away. And then if she's not available, which is generally never, she just never takes any time out of the office until she was sick last week, and we kind of were like, you have to, she had pneumonia. It was like, but anyway,
have to go home.
Yes. But if she is not available, Jamad will try everything he can and he will certainly go to Jen Solar and ask her if he doesn't know the answer.
So if I could just put one caveat on them, though,
Please.
just to make sure everybody understands. So with the department and having over 30 industries, we stagger our renewal periods throughout the year. So for instance, along with yacht brokers, then we also opened up, say, real estate on June 1, and there's a yin to the yang of how many people we're opening up at one time, right? We're pairing together maybe a very large division, and then maybe, for instance, there are much fewer licensees for, say, auctioneers, right? So we're gonna be looking at that. And so where I'm going with this thought pattern, though, is, and I get it, I get the tendency to wait to the last minute. I love to say I'm on time, but I'm always sliding right on in there. But your best bet with knowing what's going on with the department right now is that, say, if you have a 60-day renewal period, get it in on day 1 or week 1, because going through the average submission process is going to be your best bet, because if everybody is contacting Shalisa and Jamad, it will be no different than if you were to contact the call center, because then everybody is just going through them, right? You see what I'm saying? Anyway, and so to put this in perspective, so for instance, with realtors, there's 500,000 of them, right? And so if they're at the same time you are, and we keep an eye on that, and so it stresses us out when we can see, oh gosh, there's only 1 week left of this renewal period, and we're only, say, 20% of the way through 500,000 licensees, not necessarily because of our staffing issues, but because of timing of receipt. If we get the other 80% in the last week of an 8-week renewal period, we didn't magically get 80% more staff that last week. So I just want to put that out there. And again, like Siobhan said, we're not throwing shade. We get it. Things come up. But your best bet is to get it out just in early if you can. If you have a problem, though, and where we love to hear from you, and I don't mean love that you're in this predicament, but I'd love to help you, is that if you're one of these people, again, if you're submitting at day 1 of a 60-day renewal period, it is going to get processed on time. It's going to take a little bit longer than usual, but we don't have any industries right now that are outside of their 30-day statutory window. So where we, hear from people, and not that you have to wait this long, but say it's like Thursday, and you want to close that sale on Saturday, and you're like, if I don't have my license, this is going to be an issue. Right. Again, you have to wait that long, but I mean, that's usually when we like to help people so that it really, truly, we can deal with the ones that are true emergencies and not the ones that have time that work through the normal cycle.
Do you remember off the top of your head roughly how many licensed yacht brokers there are in the state of Florida?
I do have those numbers.
She had it pulled up.
Yeah.
I think it's 3,800 and some change.
Let me...
And you're probably about right, and that's why I wanted to put it in perspective as to why you are probably paired with, say, then
A bigger group.
also an industry that has. So just recognize, and so then, like I said, the other 28 industries or so, I'm not saying those are the only applications coming through right now, but their renewal periods, they're all staggered so that we do try and manage the flow, but it definitely gets stressful the last couple of weeks of those renewal cycles.
I agree. Yeah. it
Yeah.
does. So I do not have our total numbers. I have, but I can get those for you. The number of applications that we received for our last fiscal year, as the secretary mentioned, that ends on June 30, was 2,730. The number of applications that were approved was 2,725.
So 5 people didn't make the cut.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And we don't necessarily know why. I mean, that could be that, maybe there was a deficiency in the application that was flagged. It also could be that they just never completed their
Right.
application, because when we get it, a lot of times, maybe there might be a piece of information missing. So it may be someone who voluntarily chose to, for whatever reason.
Step out of the process.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, we don't necessarily, and until we dig down deeper, we wouldn't have that and wouldn't necessarily be able to
That's still
share
a
it.
very, very strong close rate.
But it's very
If
strong,
If
yeah.
I could close all but 5 of 2,700 customers, I wouldn't be here. I'd be driving Andy's Ferrari.
You'd be at the resort in the
somewhere.
Bahamas. Yeah.
I'd be at Joe's place. That's where I'd be. Andy there he is. Andy has a microphone. Does anyone in the audience have a question that they'd like to ask the ladies of the DBPR? Gary, up front. I bet you never thought you'd be called the ladies of the DBPR before.
It's not the worst thing we've been
I
called.
really don't. I really don't have a question. I just want to see him run. No. So there's something that's confused me for a while on a situation that we have within our company. A foreign broker that doesn't live in the U.S. that wants to have a Florida license to be able to come into Florida to sell a boat was turned down because he doesn't have a green card. That's something I don't understand because it's not in the statute, right? Is there any provision for that person to get licensed, being that he's not a resident of Florida, but he wants to be able to come in occasionally to sell a boat?
Or is that something that speaks to something that is part of the state code that isn't addressed in our statute because it's addressed elsewhere?
I mean, it seems to me if it's not addressed in the statute, then if it's not a violation of the statute, it should be approved. I mean, his background check is clean and everything else.
So he doesn't have a Florida residence, so he can't be issued the license. That's their
right.
That's their
and he
response,
can't,
right?
even if he wanted to, you can't get a green card right now unless your last name is Trump. So, it's just not possible. But it's also not in violation of anything. So. Is this one of those things, you're looking at me like a deer in the headlights?
Oh, I am. I have no idea what the answer to the question is. Yeah, so if it looks like that. And what I will say is we can certainly find out for you. There's a couple of things that are going through my head so that I don't look like a total blonde up here. One is that they had me go to the general counsel at conference back in June to tout the fact that we take international applications, not necessarily for yacht brokers, but just, the department generally, and talk about some of those programs. So point being is that I'm with you that there's no general prohibition on someone from outside the country. Now, what you have to have in terms of your actual elements to meet the test, that I'm not quite sure of. And so what we can do, though, is certainly get with someone. That is definitely the example of when you would call Jamad or Charlisa and work it up. And so we can get you their direct contact information and figure out maybe what's going on there.
Yeah, it seems to have gone down a black hole, so we're
I
not
will
really sure what to do with them.
I'm looking at the statute right now, Chapter 326, and subsection 6 includes a number of bases upon which you can deny a license. Subsection 6 reads, the division may deny a license to any applicant who does not, and it lists a number of things, but subsection D says, demonstrate that he or she is a resident of this state, or that he or she is conducting business in this state, and sounds like they are conducting business. So I'll give you my card, and so we can actually take a look at that application and kind of suss that out and what happened there. But it does look like it is a requirement if they aren't transacting business here. But it sounds like your example they might be. So.
Well, in the interest of adhering with the law, he would like to conduct business in the state. But since he is not yet licensed, he is not conducting business in the state.
Okay. Well,
And I will say, Two quick follow-ups. That one is that the department certainly has to follow the law. I do think, though, that from what I've seen is that although regulation is our name, we try very hard to work with our licensees and get to yes if we can. There are sometimes we just can't because of whatever's going on. I don't know what the answer is here, but we'll certainly try to. But please, like I said, give us a call about that. The other thing I would say too is that it's great of you to give your contact information. You're also welcome to contact my office. A lot of times if it does get to be that type of issue, if it has Siobhan's or my name behind it, it will get as far as it can. I'll put it that way. So, we'd absolutely love to help you out with that if we can.
The reality of the situation is there's tons of international brokers coming to sell boats in Florida, and they just don't worry about it. So
Right.
He's trying to be, he's trying to follow the law, and he's not
Right.
able to.
And I do have two follow-up, if you'll just, two thoughts. One is that we do, I was trying to remember my second thought from earlier and I couldn't, and so this is a continuation of that thought. The other thing that I've noticed is that I don't think that the department makes a ton of mistakes, but when we have, at least during my tenure, I have found that our division directors are willing to say, either myself or someone on my team missed this and to correct it. So I think that's, again, that's not the usual. Usually we're getting it right, but I just wanted to kind of give that out there as well. So there's something you'd like for us to take a second look at a higher level. We're happy to do it. Going to the allegation that there are several yacht brokers internationally, or maybe not brokers, we shouldn't even give them that term, but there are several people who may be international or coming in transacting business when they shouldn't be and aren't licensed. It drives us crazy when we hear that. And I don't mean crazy from your industry, but it is, I don't have two hands to count on to the number of industry conferences that I go to where I don't hear about unlicensed activity. It certainly is a concern, understandably, as it should be, of most industries. Where we can really use help and, quote unquote, give you some homework is that when people report activity that is unlicensed, if they're willing to give us a name or a phone number or an address or something to go off of, it is the easiest way. It's difficult for our staff with the number of people we have to just police the entire state. But if we have a direct lead, we follow up on 100% of the leads that we receive. And so two thoughts on that is that you can go to our website, and it's myfloridalicense.com. If you scroll down, you'll see file a complaint. You can do it right there. You also, for everybody that has an iPhone in their hand, you can go right now to our mobile app. If you put in DBPR in the App Store, it's a free app, and you can file it right there. And all complaints that are filed with the state have the ability to be anonymous.
Yeah, and the secretary hit the nail on the head, is that you have to remember, when he's stating, and this, we do a lot for this with our company here in Florida, is that the person filing for that license, and though they are conducting business in the United States, you're talking about the state of Florida license for brokering. But then they still have to file, come under the same law of the United States, and obviously the Department of State Department, which is the allowing of them to even be in the United States conducting the business to begin with, before they can even apply for that. And most of those people, quite honestly, would not be doing it.
They're not properly
They
visaed.
come to the boat show, and they work for, Fraser in Europe, but they're gonna come to the boat show, and we obviously they come every year and they're there. Theoretically speaking, it is illegal, because unless you're on either a green card or even if you're on a B1, B2 visa, that does not, there are certain things you can conduct and certain things you cannot conduct on the different visa programs. So I can understand why before it even gets to that level, they've got to follow the law of the United States first to even conduct business here before they can even apply for an application to then have a broker's license.
It's a complicated issue.
Well, first of all, I want to compliment the board for having such great content, and I think, is this the largest group we've ever had on the West Coast?
It is.
I was at the one on the East Coast, and that was the largest too. So I think that's really indicative of, a lot of the professionalism that, this group is bringing to the yacht brokers industry. And it seems like half the people in Florida are licensed realtors, and it seems like the other half are licensed yacht brokers. Do we know how many hopefully how many active licensed yacht brokers currently are in the state?
So I don't have those numbers. I just reached out.
I heard it the other day, actually. It was 3,984, something right close to 4,000.
Oh, okay.
Licenses that are active. If you apply for a license today, your license number, if granted, would be 11,500 and something or other. But actively there are just a smidgen under 4,000 active yacht and shipbrokers licenses.
Okay.
And how many people do you think are actively employed, not just having licenses?
I
But
would
that's-
guesstimate that 2,000 of them are using their licenses.
And do we know how many?
Based upon, you know, the membership, based upon the companies that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, I would say that we are just a little bit over 2,000 brokers that are actually using their licenses. Many, like realtors, qualify for the license, they pay the fee, but they don't use it actively.
And the other question is, how many brokerage companies are there? And when you consider, I think that these licenses are done sequentially, and I think one of my brokers, they were I thought it was like 13,000 or something. So when you look at over the course of licensing, how many people are active, there's a lot of attrition in this industry. So there's a lot of hardships in this industry, and the ones that survive are some of the better best. And I compliment everybody for being here and being committed and trying to make this a better industry.
That's why you see with a 35-year history, we have close to 12,000 licenses having been issued, but 4,000 of them active. So a third of them are live numbers, and 2/3 of them are subjects to attrition, subjects of attrition.
One thing I've often wondered, how many active boat salespersons exist in the United States? How many people are actively calling the marine industry in the sales leg of it a career? It'd be interesting to know what that number is. I just thought about that. And also worldwide, how many people work in our industry? If anybody has that number, let me know.
There are 919 employing brokers licensed right now in the state of Florida. And when we did a look a couple of years ago, we saw that members of the IYBA were doing 80% of the gross volume sales, 80% of the business done in Florida, 50% of the business done in the United States, and 20% of the business done worldwide. And that was when our membership was about 75 to 80% of what it is now. So I would dare say that those numbers have increased pretty significantly because our penetration has gotten better. But as I told Charlton earlier, 93.6% of all statistics are made up. So just keep that in mind.
So this question kind of goes back to out-of-state brokers, not international. And so let's say you have one in Maryland or New Jersey, and I've heard the arguments from them that they're doing business as their client in New Jersey or whatever. They just come down, visit it, they process everything out of state. Is there a way for them, if they don't have a Florida license, to buy a boat that's in Florida? Is there any? I guess what I'm asking is that illegal?
According to the statute, they may not enter the state of Florida and act as a broker in expectation of compensation. That's the language in the statute. Can they send their customer down here to work with the cooperating broker and have that broker act as a broker, show the boat, do the survey, the paperwork takes place offshore, any place outside the state of Florida? Yes, if I'm not mistaken, if I interpret it correctly,
Yes,
that's the
right.
case. But they are not permitted by law to enter the state of Florida, physically step their foot across the St. Mary's River and come into Florida and act as a broker in expectation of compensation.
Okay,
Now, these guys are lawyers, I'm not. So they'll tell you where all the loopholes are.
thanks.
So we're a little short on, well, we're not a little short on time, but we're about wrapping up. There's another initiative that you had mentioned to me earlier that you'd like to share with the audience.
I would, and actually, and you may be able to help me, Paul, is Gary Smith here?
Gary Smith. That's that guy right there.
Gary, can we get you to come on up?
Hands up against the table, Mother Sticker.
And Gary, so we have started an initiative to recognize some of our outstanding licensees at the department, and we certainly did not want to miss an opportunity to do that here today. I also have to apologize to you. I'm still going to present this to you, but I realized I was so excited about presenting you with your proclamation that you didn't even know you were getting, that I broke your frame. So we're going to fix that right after this. So just know it was my amount of enthusiasm. And yes, but whereas Gary Smith of Sarasota, Florida, having served as a yacht and ship salesperson for 22 years and 18 years as a certified professional yacht broker, you aren't that old, so those numbers are wrong. We'll check those statistics later. And whereas Gary Smith, having grown up in Louisiana and an active alumnus of Louisiana State University and a degree in business administration and marketing, and whereas Gary Smith being a lifetime boater, scuba diver, and airboat pilot, and whereas Gary Smith is the owner of SYS International Yacht Sales, a family-owned and operated boutique-style yacht sales company founded in 1986 that is focused on providing a complete and personalized service in all aspects of yachting. Did you know you were this awesome? No. I did. And whereas Gary Smith, whose company SYS Yacht Sales was the first in Florida to be designated as an endorsed brokerage by the prestigious Certified Professional Yacht Broker Program, and whereas Gary Smith was presented with the Vincent J. Petrella Chairman's Award by the Certified Professional Yacht Broker Program in January 2022, having been actively engaged in boating and sailing activities on a local, regional, and/or national level, exemplifying professionalism, ethical behavior, promoting the IYBA program, and serving his community. Now, therefore, the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation hereby recognizes Gary Smith for his outstanding achievement throughout 22 years of service as a yacht and ship salesperson and 18 years as a certified professional yacht broker for the great state of Florida. Congratulations, Gary. All right, and we won't,
You didn't get any blood on it.
Okay.
You got blood on it.
There's no blood. Okay, all right.
She's
I
been
am going to get
tested.
you
It's
a new
okay.
frame. I actually traveled with extra just in case something like this went wrong. Always come prepared, right? So I'm going to get you a new one.
You're a Girl Scout.
I am a Girl Scout, yes. So don't go too far. I'll be right back. But Paul, you also should not go too far.
Oh, no.
We, as Paul mentioned, has just been such a champion for your industry, and I hope you know what good hands that you are in having him as your representative, because you have been, and this is a compliment when I use this word, but persistent, and certainly followed up and made sure that your needs of your industry are heard, which is the example of an excellent advocate. And so we couldn't let this moment pass without also presenting you with a proclamation, Paul, if you'll indulge me. Whereas Paul Flannery of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, having served South Florida as a yacht and ship salesperson for 26 years and 9 years as a certified professional yacht broker, and whereas Paul Flannery, having been involved in the maritime industry almost his entire life, starting as a dock boy and up to captain. We do our research here.
Yes, you
Yeah,
do.
we are thorough. Up
I'm
to
afraid
captain.
what's down in the paragraph further.
We kept it PG. Up to captain on custom sport fishing boats in the tournament circuit. And whereas Paul Flannery, having earned a 500-ton United States Coast Guard master license and traveled many of the world's oceans, and whereas Paul Flannery, having owned and operated Flannery Yachts from 1996 to 2004, when it merged with HMY Yacht Sales, and whereas Paul Flannery is currently the Chief Operating Officer of the International Yacht Brokers Association, which boasts more than 1,600 members and is the world's largest and most influential association for the yacht brokerage and charter industry. And whereas Paul Flannery, who sees environmental sustainability as the biggest trend in the super yacht sector in the near future, now therefore, Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation hereby recognizes Paul Flannery for his outstanding achievements throughout 26 years of service as a yacht and ship salesperson and 9 years as a certified business yacht broker for the great state of Florida. Congratulations,
Thank you so
Paul.
much. Thank you.
And I actually managed to not break this one, so.
I'm really touched
Gary,
by
I'm coming
that.
back
Thank
to you.
you.
Yes, no, oh my
Thank
gosh,
you
thank you
so
for everything.
much.
We really appreciate it. And thank you for allowing us to be here and share some of your time.
And thank you to the DBPR and Melanie Griffin from our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. So Rob Welling is going to bring up, Bob's going to talk about Rob.